Whataburger Friday Night Stars, presented by Game On Sports, live from the Star in Frisco, Texas, and the Dallas Cowboys headquarters. Here's Kyle Yeomans, Zach Walchuk, Eric Chiafalo, and Heckma Harrison.
Is as fun as this week is, and with the 12 games being played at AT&T Stadium, there's all the camaraderie and the fandom around Texas high school football. Over 250,000 fans filing in and out of AT&T Stadium. But now once it's all over and the pageantry reaches its peak, then it's just the end of football season. Everybody kind of has that Sunday morning you wake up and you're just missing football again.
Well, for me, I'm not like an NFL guy. So this is like my football. So once it's over right before Christmas, that's kind of it for me. You know, I've still got my Texas Longhorns and some college ball to go, but this is kind of it for me. This is kind of cherry on top to it all, and then I'm done till August. So once I get here, you know, Sunday's kind of just a rest day, and then Monday's usually when I always start my prep for the next week. So it's a little, I'm not going to have anything to do. I'm going to be a little lost, probably a little Christmas shopping, but it's going to be an empty feeling, but, you know, eventually you move to the off-season, 7-on-7 and recruiting stuff, and, you know, you get your little fix that way. And we got realignment coming up this year, so it's a big off-season, but August is going to be a long ways away come Monday.
Yeah, this has been a marathon for sure. Started from week one all the way till now. So many ebb and flows, so many teams that we thought were going to make it to this point that didn't. I mean, the unpredictability of Texas high school football is amazing, and it's just one of those things where you can't pick them. But we did get an opportunity to see some great rematches. Obviously, the Galena North Shore and Duncanville game. And, man, just so many surprises, so many guys for 2019 that I can think of that just kind of, you know, took the reins for their teams. Eli Stowers, to just be a guy that just seemed like he just matured right in front of our face and became just a baller, for lack of a better word. I mean, he just became that, and just so many other guys in Texas. And so, I mean, 2019 for me is just going to be one of those seasons where I look back on it just to think about those young guys that took the step forward now and then. You think about the guys that are leaving, like the Jackson Smith, Jiba, the Jaquindon Jacksons, the Marvin Mims. I mean,
your boy.
Yeah, man, so many guys that, I mean, Chandler Morris, your boy. You know,
Yep.
So, you know, guys that we've been talking about these guys because it's well-deserved, because they've been doing everything and putting up those great numbers, and now these guys get to move on. So that's the bittersweet part of it for me, is just seeing these guys move on. But we got more names to come for sure.
And it's been really fun seeing these breakout stars like Quinn Ewers coming out this year. Quinn Ewers, a big fan of mine, and Guy Frazier over to my right.
President right here.
Vice president. Yeah, we run it. Hit us up.
I think Bill Jones is in that as well. Right in the middle of that side.
And I don't want to get ahead of myself. We were talking in the press box earlier around halftime, you know, some early contenders for a 6A D1 state championship next year, and Quinn Ewers and the South Lake Carroll Dragons came to mind. So, you know, we might get to that later on.
Well, and that's the thing is there are so many question marks now going into the offseason with the losses. Who will step up? Who will be the next generation of high school stars in the state of Texas? And We'll get to that eventually. Of course, we'll be throughout the offseason controlling during recruiting season as well as that's starting to come up. But let's talk about these games over the course of the day and the weekend here at UIL State Championships. And Heckma, you alluded to Duncanville and North Shore. We'll get to that game. We'll also talk about last night's game, Denton Ryan and Shadow Creek, which was an instant classic as well. But let's start with the game that just concluded. 24-0, Westlake and the Chaps take care of business. However, Denton Guyer a little bit, let's just say, down after Eli Stowers went out with an injury to his left leg early in the ballgame. We're not going to speculate on any of the injuries at the moment. However, it was deflating really from the get-go for Denton Guyer.
Kyle, it just seemed as though all of the energy left the building for Denton Guyer once, he suffered that injury. I mean, and you never like to, no one likes to see anyone get hurt, but you want to see teams compete with all of their stable of horses. And obviously for Denton Guyer, he's a big part of what they do. And so once he went down, man, it just seemed like the energy level went with him.
Well, and to circle back kind of when you were just talking about certain guys, individuals being kind of leaders of their team, he was kind of gas to their car. I'm not going to say that they would have beat Westlake tonight with them. I think Westlake probably was the better team overall. But I don't think we would have seen a goose egg laid up there either. And I think we would have had a really good game potentially. Right. So to see a guy like that fall in a game like this, he'll be back because he's a 2021 guy. But you don't want to see guys like that go down in the big game at the end of the year. It just kind of takes the air out of the building. And kind of like Matt Stepp said, Dave Campbell's, to put a wet blanket kind of to the end of the season. Yeah. It is what it is.
And they had to switch up their whole game plan. I mean, they powered Kadrick Cobbs through that line the entire game. I think he accounted for, 168 of 186 total yards for Denton Guyer tonight. So it's just run Cobbs and see what happens, and it didn't quite work out tonight.
And whenever you replace a guy like Stowers at the quarterback position, normally you're going to see a drop-off, especially when it's a young quarterback that comes in. And Jackson Arnold did what he could, 2 of 11 passing, 6 yards, and 2 interceptions on the day. That's not what you want to see from your quarterback, but that's a reason why you see Kadrick Cobbs in the stat line that he had 28 carries, 162 yards on the ground. He did not find the end zone, of course, because of the shutout for Denton Guyer. However, Westlake just took care of business like they did in the semifinals against Katy Taylor, 63-3, and then they come here and pitch a shutout. The defense for Westlake, even though the offense has been kind of the storyline, the defense under 10 points per game on the course of the season. They were the real deal.
Unbelievable. I mean, look, I was looking for just a few guys that I could point to say, all right, he's the stud of that defense or he's the stud of that defense. No, it's 11 guys on that team, and they play cohesively and pursuing the ball. Not taking any bad angles, very aggressive. I was, my God, impressed with that team, just the way that they pursued defensively. But Leo Lowen is a name that I number 10 for some reason was popping out he was sideline to sideline making tackles, and he didn't even win the MVP in this game defensively.
Well, the Yale commit was really good tonight, but it was like I said at halftime, and it had the potential of it happening, and it did. Westlake, 12 of their 16 games this year allowed no more than a touchdown in the game. That's impressive. Wow. I mean, that's just stifling, quite frankly. I think there was a 2-week period in October, including the Lake Travis game, where they kind of went away from that trend, but then they got right back to it. And then you saw it in the playoffs last week, 63-3, then 24-0. That's pretty dominant. So the offense was good, and Micho and those guys, but the Westlake defense, I think, is kind of what got them here. Oh, and then it was fitting that they put up a goose egg there and finished the season strong.
Yeah, and a big underlying aspect of this game is Todd Dodge.
Absolutely.
It's his 5th total state championship. He finally brought back one to Austin Westlake, their first since '98, I believe. But the only 2 losses for Guyer this year came to teams with the coach last name Dodge.
Absolutely. So, Riley Dodge of Southlake.
Think they communicated a little bit on that?
No.
No game plan, no film share.
No.
And historically, this has been a game that Westlake has struggled in. They're 1 for 8 in state championship games. I think this was number 9 as far as attempts. So they finally get over that. Drew Brees was the only other guy that's ever won one. You think about Nick Foles, Sam Ellinger, Brees. They've had a lot of good quarterbacks come through, and then they finally get one tonight.
And that's something to look at, of course, the success that they were able to have really from the get-go. And Kirkland Michaud, 20 of 31, 283 yards and 3 touchdowns. I mean, Michaud right up there in terms of the legends now at Westlake because of what he has been able to bring now down to Austin. But you talk about Todd Dodge a little bit, and of course Riley Dodge, the head coach of Southlake, and the kind of the legacy that he started to build in the North Texas area. He started and really built that Southlake program, went to North Texas, and was the head coach of the Mean Green. Things didn't necessarily go well there. Went to Marble Falls for a minute. Now he's back at Westlake, and he's now got a title to go. How satisfying do you think this was overall for Todd Dodge to be able to win a state championship, but to do it against a team in Denton and out of the same district that his former rivals were in?
Yeah, I mean, I've just got to say that the Dodge family, that coaching tree, they have all of the teams as far as Southlake, even this team, discipline is what I see from these teams. And so, I mean, wow, man. All I can say is just how great this game was for him and the way that his team performed. I mean, not a lot of penalties, not any turnovers for these guys. Defensively, they play together. Offensively, you talk about their quarterback and how efficient he was. I mean, not error-free all the way around. And look, when I look at Southlake, they almost, it's kind of eerily familiar when you talk about
mirror each other.
Exactly, just the way that they play ball, and it seems like they don't do anything to self-inflicted penalties or injuries or anything like that. I mean, I loved it, man.
Well, it's got to be satisfying. One, they lost in 2015 and came up short in a really good game with North Shore, but then last year they got upset by a Westbrook team that got hot at the right time.
Yeah.
So they come back a year later and finish it this time and get the state and then, get the job done. That's got to be satisfying for a bunch of kids that were probably on that team last year.
And they had a tough playoff run from the very get-go. Had to beat a really good Cibolo Steel team that easily could have been here in the very first round of the playoffs.
Yeah.
And then getting here against a really good Denton Geyer team, which 24-0 with 2 minutes left, we know that Geyer's not out of it necessarily. If they get hot, they can mess around and drop 24 in 2 minutes. So they were able to finish that shutout out. It's just really impressive what Todd Dodge and Westlake was able to do tonight.
Second state championship for Westlake and the Chaps in there. Like Guy said, their 9th overall appearance here at the state championships. And we've got plenty of games to get to coming up next. We're going to preview Denton Ryan. Or not preview, but review. Denton Ryan and Shadow Creek. What a game that was, the Friday nightcap, and then we'll talk about all the games that happened today here at AT&T Stadium. Don't go anywhere. You're watching Whataburger Friday Night Stars and the 2019 wrap-up show here on Game On Sports.
Thought possible and keeping us curious. It's what sets us apart from the herd. It's how we come up with the ideas that make people say, why didn't I think of that? See, when you nurture the creativity and passion that's in all of us, you'll learn nothing is out of reach.
Ashley Home Store, the #1 furniture and mattress store in America. We have all the major mattress brands at a guaranteed low price. Plus, we have furniture for every room in the house and decorator accessories to make it yours. With multiple locations, personalized service from knowledgeable associates, and convenient finance plans to fit your budget. Ashley Home Store, the official furniture store of the Dallas Cowboys. This is home.
Get excited, Whataburger fans. Our one-of-a-kind mushroom Swiss burger is back.
And now it's an all-time favorite.
If you love mushrooms, you're going to love this burger.
The double cheese, the mushrooms was absolutely amazing.
It's a really good balance between the mushrooms and the Swiss, and that au jus sauce on top.
The creamy au jus sauce.
It really complements the mushrooms. Everything just works perfectly together.
It's just perfect. Every bite's perfect.
It's not just a mushroom Swiss burger, it's a Whataburger mushroom Swiss burger.
These over the course of the day. Of course, we are on the road at AT&T Stadium and having some fun talking about the weekend and kind of reviewing what has gone on here at AT&T Stadium, home to the Cowboys and home to Texas high school football. Kyle Yeomans, Nick Harris, Heckma Harrison, and Guy Frazier down at the end. We talked about the 24-0 win for Westlake and the Chaps. Todd Dodge getting his 5th state championship as a head coach in Texas high school football over Denton Guyer. Another Denton team in action last night. Denton Ryan and the Raiders, led by Coach Dave Hennigan, trying to get back into the winner's side of a state championship game for the first time since 2002. It was their first appearance since 2010, and this was an instant classic, no doubt about it. We'll take a look at some of the highlights as we talk over really the 28-22 win for Alvin Shadow Creek. Shadow Creek, who was in the state title game a year ago against Highland Park, but this time they came back and finished the deal.
I just want to ask Heckma what he thinks about my comment I made in about week 7 or week 8 about Shadow Creek being the best team pound for pound in the state.
Don't make me eat my words.
No, I didn't say that you were disagreeing with me. I just want to get your thoughts on what I said.
Nick, listen, man, you called it. You called it, and you told me, you said a name. You said, Heckma, Kyron Drones. This kid is the real deal. And let me tell you, the 6'2", 180-pound quarterback, my God, man, he did not disappoint yesterday. He was throwing down over that coverage. I mean, I've seen Denton Ryan completely just shut out offenses. I mean, I watched them shut out the Lone Star offense. And so in my head, I really didn't think that would be possible. But, man, the score, even though it was an instant classic, the score wasn't indicative of anything that happened in the game because, again, Kyron Jones he had some errant passes, but without those turnovers in the red zone, it wasn't a game at all.
And he still has a year to develop.
Wow.
I see him at a full potential being a Cam Newton-esque type player. He brought it last night. He had, like you said, a couple of bad mistakes that led to 2 Billy Bowman interceptions, actually. But other than that, I mean, he was very effective on the ground. He is very effective through the air. And he was basically the reason that the offense was able to get going last night for Shadow Creek, and he's the reason they've been able to get going all season. And something kind of different about what happened last night was that his top receiver, Seth Jones, was locked down all night by sophomore corner Austin Jordan. Quick shout out to Austin Jordan. He had a fantastic outing last night for the Denton Ryan Raiders. But Kyron was able to get some other guys involved and able to get 28 points on the board and eventually win that game.
Yeah, it was a stalemate. It looked from the first quarter. DJ Arkansas, I mean, all night he was shadowing Kyron Jones. And like I said, it was a heavyweight matchup. Even there at the end, Drew Sanders had an opportunity to make a play on the ball. He jumped a little early, and it was like he was coming down. The guy from Shadow Creek knocked it out of his hand. I love that interview at the end of the game. He said he thought he could out-jump me. But this is Texas high school football, and it was so competitive. But that game in particular, man, the stars that were on the field and just the explosive plays yesterday, man, what an awesome game that was.
Denton Ryan held to just 250 yards total. That defense for Shadow Creek, especially the defensive line, just had their way with Denton Ryan in the trenches.
Well, and just the front seven in general. Jeremiah Harris, the K-State commit, was phenomenal, defensive MVP. And I was actually talking to Chandler Morris, my boy, before the game before the game this afternoon. And we were talking about Jeremiah, and he said, going back to last year, after Highland Park had beaten Shadow Creek, his takeaway was Jeremiah was the most active and actually the best guy, in his opinion, that they played against last year. And when he saw last night was no, I guess, surprise to Chandler. It was just continuing where he saw him last year. So, Jeremiah was the one guy that stood out to me, just really active in that linebacking core for Shadow Creek. And just top to bottom, like you said, best pound-for-pound team in the state, and on that defense especially.
Yeah, and Schenkel, number 44. Man, both of those guys. I mean, Shadow Creek, they presented a lot of problems for Denton Ryan up front. But the Virginia Tech commit, Alec Bryant, that kid, I heard a lot about what happened with him at the last minute, with him signing with Virginia Tech. I hear that LSU took their letter, they letter of intent off the table. Yeah. What a mistake that. 6'4", 280 pounds. I watched this kid last night just anchor himself in that defense and not allow any running to go on. And watching Amani Bailey for Denton Ryan, it's a kid that helps them get in rhythm. They held him to like 17 yards in the first half. That is something we'd never seen.
There was a lot of just great defensive performances, even on both sides.
Yeah, both sides.
Yeah, both sides of the ball. And Denton Ryan, Billy Bowman, again, his 2 interceptions. Drew Sanders was a big force up front, as he always is. Like I said, Austin Jordan earlier.
Jatavian Sanders was active early, picking up where he left off last week, and which I thought was probably one of the best performances in a big game anyway in his career.
Yeah, and he was very effective on offense as well. And the question I kind of wanted to bring to the table was did Denton Ryan get slow in the fourth quarter based on, a lot of those guys playing both ways? Did that happen again, or was it just a result of Shadow Creek being the better team last year?
Yeah, I didn't see any of that, and I was looking for it, and I know that Shadow Creek came in, and a lot of teams that play Denton Ryan at this point in the season, they try and play an up-tempo style, hoping to get their main, their horses tired. Those guys didn't tire out. It just was a bigger part of the fact that Shadow Creek, their team speed was what made the difference in that game.
Yeah, you mentioned defensively, both teams having an impressive showing really in the first half and then leading a little bit into the second half. But can we talk about the special teams last night for both sides? Yeah. The fact that Denton Ryan was able to pull off what was one of the most incredible plays. Starburst is what they call it.
It has a name?
Yeah. It has a name.
It's a throwback.
Starburst is what it was. And apparently it's a classic play a little bit. Joe Hoyt posted it on Twitter and threw it back with some old footage.
We love Joe.
Yeah, we do love Joe, friend of the show. And my goodness, just the punt with Riley Nuzzo going over his head and then in the end zone being able to kick it away in what seemingly was the smarter play. And then all of a sudden, Masters takes it to the house for Shadow Creek, and it was a fight back and forth with special teams.
Bobo always has his head in the game. I love Bobo Masters. I saw Shadow Creek play against Hightower earlier this year. He was just flying around the field. He's just a great little high school athlete. I was not surprised. I was not surprised seeing him pick that up and run it right in. And even if you see a couple of punts after that, he was always right there. Even the ball was rolling, he was like, take it again.
It was such a bizarre play. Like, I was actually with Joe Hoyt down there on the sideline when it happened. We were just baffled by it. But I think the thing about Bobo in that play was if you go back and look at the replay, everybody kind of fell asleep around the ball. I think they kind of thought the play was just over.
Yeah.
But there was no whistle. He picked it up and ran to the house. Next thing you know, he's got a touchdown on his hands. So it was just a good heady play of being aware that the play wasn't dead and playing through, the end of the play.
And he could have walked in.
He could. It was just
a straight seam down that far sideline.
Down the sideline. Yeah.
It was an impressive play overall. We talk about Denton Ryan not having a ton of success on offense. You mentioned Amani Bailey. Of course, what he was able to do in the quarterfinals and the semifinals, 6 total touchdowns, almost 500 yards rushing, more than that overall. But last night just held to 9 carries for 54 yards. Just not the normal night for Amani Bailey. Was it just the front 7 that just overshadowed Amani Bailey last night?
I think so. It's funny. They went to him early, and they didn't get a whole lot of success out of it. And then kind of in the middle portions of the game, he just disappeared. In fact, I think Nick and I talked about it at one point. They tried to give him the ball a little bit, I think towards the end, if I recall correctly, but it was just never really there. And if you go back to like last week, he was great. And the week before that against Colleyville Heritage. So, I think him not producing last night, it wasn't all his fault. The O-line up front for Denton Ryan, let's just be honest, struggled in that game. And I think the even more surprising part was Shadow Creek didn't really bring a lot of pressure. They just brought 4 guys a good majority of the night, but they just got, they were eaten alive up front. And, it showed.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I saw that when we were talking about calling the game last night. I saw that anytime that Seth Hennigan was in at quarterback, you saw Shadow Creek, not rush a lot because they were not worried about Seth Hennigan running the ball. Yeah. And so they keyed off on Amani Bailey. And then when they went to the Drew Sanders package, that's when they brought everybody to the line of scrimmage and said, all right, we know what's about to happen now. So that's, great scheming by the defensive coordinators for Shadow Creek, just saying that, hey, we know that we have to worry more about this guy actually throwing the ball. And so they played responsibility, they played sound, and the strategy that they brought to the game, I think that's what made the difference offensively for Ryan, not having any success.
Yeah, and Brad Butler was not going to let Ryan beat them on the ground. Yeah. He was going to make Seth Hennigan beat him through the air. And honestly, if Drew Sanders times that jump right, almost does it. But there's a lot of what-ifs this weekend.
Yes, the thing is they gave themselves a chance to win. And you're down by multiple scores really late in that game. Right. You get the defensive stop that you need with less than a minute and a half remaining, I believe, on the clock. Going into that final drive, you get the ball back. You're inside, deep in the opponent's territory. It wasn't a Hail Mary pass to Drew Sanders. Yeah. It was just a normal passing play.
Yeah, that was an unnecessary roughness call the play before that put them 15 yards ahead of where they should have been. I think they were around the 35, 38-yard line in that ballpark somewhere. They had a real opportunity to run like a regular play if they wanted to, but I honestly think they called the best play they could have. It was just better team won last night.
Well, and you put your best athlete on the field with a chance to make a play. And the fact, I think they actually got the ball for 58 seconds to play. So to even get yourself into that point, and be able to have a play like that, it was the best option for them. It just came up short. And like you said, there's a lot of what-ifs, but that's just football. So.
That's the thing is it was kind of a weekend full of what-ifs, and that was the game last night. There wasn't a whole lot of what-ifs with Jace McClellan and the Aledo Bearcats. We're going to talk about the Bearcats as they come up with their 9th title in program history. We'll do that coming up after the break. You're watching the 2019 Friday Night Stars wrap-up show. We'll be back from AT&T Stadium in a moment.
I'm Billy Martin. I'm an Executive Vice President with North Dallas Bank and Trust. It's about authentic intelligence as opposed to artificial intelligence. At local banks like North Dallas, we give you personalized service that you just can't get at the big banks. Everything we do is driven by your best interest. We call it having a high YQ, or U quotient.
Hey, I'm Jack. We started SeatGeek because we want fans to have a better, more transparent ticket buying experience. With SeatGeek, you can see the best deals and buy tickets, all with a price match guarantee. The only thing we can't guarantee is that your team will win. So use the code TICKETS20 at checkout for $20 off your first order.
Gear up for Back to Sport at Academy Sports and Outdoors.
It's game day. A day that should be spent in the living room, not the kitchen. So next game, you just worry about the score, because we've got the food covered. With hand-battered, cooked-to-order, always fresh, never, ever frozen chicken fingers. Craveable cane sauce, crispy crinkle-cut fries, and jugs of freshly made tea and lemonade. Raising Cane's Chicken Fingers, one love.
Go Cowboys!
back here from AT&T Stadium. Whataburger Friday Night Stars, the 2019 wrap-up show. At the conclusion here of UIL State, and the final game of the 2010s is now in the books. Does that kind of hit you a little bit? I mean, it's the final game of the decade.
Oh, that hurts.
Just being played. Does that hurt a little bit more?
I don't know if it hurts. That's just weird to process. Yeah, that's great. What a decade.
What a decade.
It's weird to think about because we were just looking, Mike Roach, Nick Harris, a couple of the guys were looking over in the press box earlier. Kyle was down there. And we were looking at the state championships from past years. And we pulled up the 2010 one between Euless Trinity and Pearland, which I think is still the overall record for attendance still at this point.
Allen Pearland, 2013.
Or is it Allen Pearland? Yeah. Okay, well, Euless Trinity Pearland was in 2010, and I was here with my dad. And just to think that was, a decade ago now is crazy, and just, time flies by, and how many games have happened since then. That's pretty crazy to think about and surreal. So.
It's crazy to think about. I mean, back, especially for me, earlier in the decade, I was here as a high school student in terms of with Waco Midway taking on a Lake Travis team that was in the middle of a 5 straight state title run. And so it's crazy thinking about the fact that what this decade had. Of course, Highland Park Manville was one of the best games we've ever seen. Duncanville North Shore last year, and we'll get to the rematch coming up in just a little bit. But one thing that 2010s as a total had was Aledo and the dominance that the Bearcats had as a program. Titletown takes another title. They're 9th in program history, and they did it against Fort Bend Marshall once again. We'll look at some of the highlights as we go over this game, but another impressive win for Aledo, and they really kind of looked down early on. Jace McClellan having to deal with a little bit of an issue. However, they showed out when it mattered, and if you are a fan of offense, this was the game for you.
I gained a different level of respect for Jace McClellan tonight, or earlier this morning, I should say. He was a previous OU commit, so, being the Longhorn guy, I didn't like Jace. I couldn't like Jace, and then he flipped to Bama. I'm like, he could have gone to Texas, I guess, but, but today, seeing him come out, battling the injuries that he's battled, not only this season, but his whole career, and then just the type of offense that Aledo runs, it just hand it off to Jace and bull rush up the middle and see what happens. He's been beaten and bruised all season, and he came out, and you wouldn't see it during the play. You'll see it after the play, but you wouldn't see it during the play. He gave a fantastic effort. Honestly, incredibly surprised that he didn't get offensive MVP, but Jake Bishop definitely deserved it. He had a fantastic game as well, able to lock down 45 points up on the board on a good Marshall defense as well. But whether you like Aledo, you don't like Aledo, they win. They're ballers, and state championships are starting to become the expectation over there on the north side.
Yeah, I would just like to say that to me, Chase McClellan has been one of those guys that over the years has been such an outstanding athlete, and you take that for granted. For me, freshman year, sophomore, junior, all the way to you just take his athleticism for granted. And I think this game, just for what he had to overcome in order to play, was somewhat of a coronation for him, just to say, man, you have been crowned the king of Texas high school football. Yeah. Just the way that this kid has been playing, the way that he's been, the yardage that he has, everything that he does, not only from a running standpoint, also in the passing game for Aledo. And this is a kid that's been doing this consistently for 4 years. And, I mean, just an amazing guy. I mean, I wish nothing but the best for Chase McClellan. I mean, amazing high school career, man. I wish that kid nothing but the best.
Well, and I can remember watching Jace against Corpus Christi Calallen 4 years ago, his freshman year.
Yeah.
I was sitting right here in the second deck, directly behind us by myself, and just watching him. And I remember a parent next to me commenting that he was 14 years old. Wow. And he just dominated that game, and he won MVP. And so, he had the chance to win his third MVP, offensive MVP trophy today, and it didn't happen. I think it should have, if I'm just being honest.
Yeah.
But Jake Bishop was great, too. But Jace was just so gutsy today. After plays, it took him a second sometimes get up and process, like, I got to go do this again. But in between, the lines and when the play was going on, wow. It was just a burst of energy every time, and he eclipsed the 200-yard mark, I think, or something stupid like that. So he was just incredible today, and it was a good last send-off before he goes off to the college part of his career.
25 carries, 220 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns, and then you also look at what Jake Bishop ended up doing. And you talked about Jake Bishop and how he played great. He was the offensive MVP, 11 for 16, 244 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And we kind of expected Jace McClellan to be that guy, but Jake Bishop definitely showed up whenever he needed and accounted for a good chunk of the 553 total yards as we take a look at some of the numbers.
Yeah, and quick shout out to Money Parks. He was the big ball money man today. 6 receptions, 132 yards, 2 touchdowns. When you think about the receiving core for Aledo this year, you think about JoJo Earl. And JoJo, fantastic athlete. He's going to have another year coming back next year, hopefully leading this Aledo team back here. But Money Parks was the man today.
Right.
Like, he had the big time plays when they needed him. He was very active in the first half, and I think if he repeats his second half that he had in the first, he probably runs away with MVP.
Well, and Money was so active in the first half that when Aledo scored their second touchdown, he was actually the decoy guy, and the entire Marshall defense got caught looking in the backfield, and JoJo Earl was just by himself downfield. So he obviously had the attention and the eyes of the Marshall secondary as a whole early. And, even in that way, he just made an effect on the game. So he was incredible today.
Yeah, and also Marshall, man, very impressive squad. I mean, their team speed did not disappoint. You talk about a 4x100 track team for Marshall. Those kids, I mean, they were moving fast. And even as the game progressed and Aledo was kind of cushioning their lead, no one thought that Marshall was out of the game because you know that they can score in bunches. Right. But, look, Aledo was just a better team and was able to put them away.
Yeah, Fort Bend Marshall's one of the fastest teams I've ever seen in person. This is my second time seeing them today. Actually, the first game I ever covered this year was Fort Bend Marshall. And then kind of seeing how they progressed throughout the season, too. They got really well polished on offense. Devon Achane just killed it today. Devon Achane is an incredible running back. I think he's going to have a very successful career at Texas A&M. Quick shout out to Ryan Browninger. He's a big fan of Devon
the president
Achane.
of his club.
The president of his fan club. But if you blink once, you miss a Fort Bend Marshall touchdown and the flag runners running out of the end zone.
Well, you talk about the fact that they're never out of a game. Heckma, you mentioned it as well. They were down 45-27. All of a sudden, you've got an onside kick where if you recover it, you've got the ball and some time to try and make some noise and at least have a chance to win or tie the football game. But Aledo overall offensively, my goodness, we talked about 553 total yards. You have a 200-yard rusher. You have 2 100-yard receivers. And then you've got a quarterback that's knocking on the door of 250 in his performance. There's a reason why they were able to get half 1,000 yards. But on the other side, same thing for Fort Bend Marshall. 50 total plays, 500 yards, an average of 10 yards per play for your math wizards out there. But my goodness, that's just an unbelievable offensive showcase on both sides.
Well, and it wasn't an offensive issue today. And for like Marshall, for example, I think Aledo was 7 for 8 on third down conversions in the first half or some number like that. So, that one stop is what made it a one-possession game at halftime. But, they were constantly playing catch-up with Aledo. And at some point, they were going to have to get a couple stops in a row to really tighten that gap up. And, it wasn't an issue as far as speed on offense or on defense really either. But, the Aledo front line on offense just created huge holes for Jace to run through, DeMarco to run through. And that was kind of where the game was won, in my opinion, was the O-line for Aledo just dominating, creating gigantic holes for those guys to run through. And then it made the passing effective as well because it just opened up stuff downfield.
What a game it was. 45-42, the final score. Aledo comes out with their 9th championship in program history. We had a rematch today as the final game we'll go through here from UIL State. Duncanville North Shore. We wrapped up 2018 with that game live here on Whataburger Friday Night Stars. We'll talk about the rematch coming up next. You're watching the 2019 wrap-up show here on FNS.
Gear up for Back to Sport at Academy Sports and Outdoors.
It's game day. A day that should be spent in the living room, not the kitchen. So next game, you just worry about the score, because we've got the food covered. With hand-battered, cooked-to-order, always fresh, never, ever frozen chicken fingers, craveable cane sauce, crispy crinkle-cut fries, and jugs of freshly made tea and lemonade. Raising Cane's Chicken Fingers, one love.
Go Cowboys!
It's in all of us, and we won't hold it back. Not one little bit. Nope, we embrace it, letting it fuel our passions, pushing us deeper than we thought possible and keeping us curious. It's what sets us apart from the herd. It's how we come up with the ideas that make people say, why didn't I think of that? See, when you nurture the creativity and passion that's in all of us, you'll learn nothing is out of reach.
Get excited, Whataburger fans. Our one-of-a-kind mushroom Swiss burger is back.
And now it's an all-time favorite.
If you love mushrooms, you're gonna love this burger.
The double cheese, the mushrooms was absolutely amazing.
It's a really good balance between the mushrooms and the Swiss, and that au jus sauce on top.
The creamy au jus sauce.
It really complements the mushrooms. Everything just works perfectly together.
It's just perfect. Every bite's perfect.
It's not just a mushroom Swiss burger, it's a Whataburger mushroom Swiss burger.
Back here of Whataburger Friday Night Stars, everybody making fun of my hair in the middle of the break. If you like my hair, like this post. Let's see how that goes. He'll probably have no likes at the end of the day. We're having some fun up here at AT&T Stadium, wrapping up the 2019 season, and Heck was loving it.
If you like Heckma's hair, dislike the post.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see how many dislikes we get over the course of the show. Kyle Yeomans, Nick Harris, Heckma Harrison, and Guy Frazier. Now, we talked about Aledo winning their 9th championship. We talked about Westlake taking care of Denton Guyer, but we had another game to talk about in terms of the rematch. Everyone wanted it. Everybody was looking forward to it. And it really lived up to the billing, at least through the first half and into the end of the fourth quarter. But North Shore gets the best of Duncanville for the second straight year. Now, this year didn't necessarily take the Hail Mary at the end of the game. A little bit more in hand. However, Duncanville, much like we talked about with Denton Guyer, without Jaquindon Jackson now, it was just kind of a letdown.
Yeah, I mean, number 9 from Galena North Shore, Davis, man, what a stud.
Oh, he's all over the place.
The kid is just, some of the passes that he was able to make just to keep those drives alive. Third down, he was out of sight. Did not allow them to get, I don't even think they may have punted twice in the entire game. It just, that's one of the things, if you look at that Galena North Shore team, just up front, what they were able to do. Duncanville's defense has been, their staple. That's been what they've been all about. Galena North Shore took it to that front line, and when it got down to, third and fourth quarter, it just seemed like they were having their way with that Duncanville front line.
And Demetrius has been doing this the entire playoff run. Well, not even the whole playoff run. He's been doing it the whole season. He's been carrying this team this season. And if you remember how good Demetrius Davis was in this game last year, think of him times 10. For 16 straight games. That's what he did this year. And I think the first game of the season, they maybe relied on some different offensive weapons, and it kind of showed that Demetrius Davis might actually be the best player on this team. They lost that game to Katy. And then when they had the rematch against Katy in round 4, blew him out.
Yeah.
Demetrius Davis, 283 rushing yards, and he has become a real lethal force on the ground. Today, he had over 100 rushing yards. Didn't even need to pass for 100 tonight. And they were still able to come out with a 2-score win. Demetrius Davis, and he still has another year.
That's amazing.
Man, we might see him back again here next year. He's just progressively getting better. I can't wait to see him over the spring and see how much better he gets.
And that's what I was thinking. This kid is a junior. He's a Virginia Tech commit. And my question was, as I'm watching this kid, I'm like, no way. This is an SEC kid. He is the body style, just the way that he throws the everything about Davis to me says that this kid is going to play prime time in the big time. Not to say that Virginia Tech's not a big time program. I'm just saying that this kid, the sky is not the limit for him.
Big time Houston presence in Virginia Tech recruiting right now.
Yeah.
That's all I got to say.
They're the hot school right now.
Shout out to Bo Davidson. He's the guy recruiting Houston hard for Virginia Tech. That hashtag TX to VT. It's popping right now. It's popping right now.
Guys.
Got a
Big
couple
time.
ballers.
But also, defensively, Galena North Shore, me and you were talking about that one play where, it was a sprint option play. Roderick Davis, Daniels Jr., he was gone. Number 22, Denver Harris, comes from the other side of the field, chases this kid down from behind. He had a jetpack in his bag.
Now you're talking my style, Heckma, because I love Denver Harris.
Denver Harris.
I love me some Denver Harris.
He's a sophomore.
Yeah, he's a sophomore.
Is he your cousin
baller.
for real?
No, he's not.
Okay.
I tried to make that joke to him earlier. He fell for it. I feel like he fell for it for half a second.
I did.
But no, Denver Harris, he's been phenomenal for that North Shore secondary all season. They've had some defensive issues throughout this entire playoff run. Gave up a ton of points to a Pasadena Dobie team. Gave up 35 to Katy, and they gave up 28 last week to Lake Travis. So you could kind of see that they were starting to bring it back in a little bit. That was Hudson Card's first game back, and they were able to limit him and what he could do. And then coming in tonight, no film on this brand new quarterback that everyone is saying is a stud. And they come in and they execute the game plan very well, because I think they came out and they wanted to use Tristan Smith. They were not going to let Tristan Smith beat them today. And they forced Parson to have to make some throws that he couldn't quite make. But I will give it to Chris Parson. He stood in there the entire game, took some big hits, and I have no doubt in my mind that he'll be here one or two more times.
Yeah.
And that's one of the tough things is whenever you lose not only a quarterback but a leader like Jaquindon Jackson. He came out, was in pads, dressed out with the squad, of course, with the torn ACL, not a threat to play nonetheless. He was there. He was there for his teammates. He was on the sideline. He continued to be the leader that you would expect out of a guy like Jaquindon Jackson. And whenever Parson needed it most, he was in there coaching up on the sideline. He was very active all the way throughout. And Parson ends up 6 for 10 passing, 100 yards on the game. Not like your normal stat line. However, it was still a gutsy performance from a freshman quarterback. And like you said, no doubt he's going to be back. He's going to have plenty of opportunities to make his stamp on this Duncanville program and on Texas high school football as a whole. He's not your normal freshman.
Yeah, Duncanville returns a really good defense as well, and they bring back Roderick Daniels next year, and he's picking up some steam as far as recruiting goes, and he's going to be a hot commodity come August. And then on their defensive side, they got Savion Bird up front on that defensive line that's coming back. They got Kendrick Blackshear, who couldn't even play this year because of a torn ACL.
Talk about it.
One of the probably the best linebacker in America, and that's not an exaggeration. This kid will come out next year, and he will be flying around. He's going to take the attention of this state very, very soon.
Yeah, I wanted to say, Chris Parson, this is kid probably going to sleep well tonight. He probably hadn't had any sleep all week just preparing for this game. But credit Galena North Shore's defense by, going to changing coverages on him, confusing the freshman. They knew that they had to throw some things out there that he wouldn't be used to. He held on to the ball a little bit, and that's why some of those coverage sacks happen. But, look, it's hard to overcome losing that talent in Jaquindon Jackson. Defensively, they just stayed out on the field too long. And any defense, I don't care how good you are, if you stay out on the field too long, those things, you start getting tired and you start seeing those big runs start to happen. But offensively, they couldn't get any rhythm. I want that if you did see in the third quarter that 4th and 1 down in the red zone where Duncanville went for it, and it was a direct snap to Tristan Smith. Hindsight is 20/20, and I'm looking at that and I'm saying to myself, kick it, get the points. You're down now 20-24. You still give yourself an opportunity. You have the best defense, but then once Galena North Shore was able to get some momentum from that point, I think the air kind of went out of the building from there.
Well, it was the way that the play happened, too. Yeah. Corey Flagg, the Miami signee for North Shore, who's not the biggest guy, but he's stout.
Oh, he plugged it, didn't he?
He stepped up, filled, and just stuck him. And the way he did it, he just ran over him. And it, like you said, kind of took the air out of one side of the building, but one side really got behind that play. And, there were some chances for Duncanville to play around the game after that, but I would say that was kind of the momentous play looking back where it kind of settled things. Like this was North Shore's game to really lose, and this was their game to take, and they did, and now they're back-to-back state champs.
And something that really took my notice right after that play happened, that is the center of the hole that Jaquindon Jackson left in this game tonight. Because you put Jaquindon Jackson right there, first down. 10 times out of 10.
That's tough.
Yeah, that's tough to lose. I mean, even up against a guy like Corey Flagg, Jaquinon's one of those guys that falls forward, doesn't stand up and fall down. He falls forward for that yard, and he gets that first down, and they score, and it's a different game maybe, you know? But like I said, a lot of what-ifs today. A lot of what-ifs this weekend. Yeah.
That's kind of been the theme of the weekend is a big what-if.
Especially if you're a DFW guy.
Yeah, DFW for sure. Alito, the one team out of the 4 that were represented this week that did come out with a win.
Shout out to Gunter.
Shouts to Gunter.
Shout out to Gunter.
Okay, that's fair. Gunter.
Shouts to Peyton Lowe and the boys up north. Pretty good team. Great program, too.
Shout out to Gunter.
I don't know if that's considered DFW.
Yeah,
we'll talk about it later.
We're counting
I mean, that's still everybody who was a champion this week.
We
no
need
doubt
all we
about
can
it,
get
earned
right
it.
now.
They're in our coverage zone for DMN. We're going to count it.
Okay, we'll count it. For Gunter?
Yeah.
Okay.
And, hey,
Gunter.
I covered them last year for Friday Night Stars.
That's
We're a
true. You did go to
DFW
a
show.
Gunter game last year. You did.
Multiple. So let's count it. Shouts to the
That's
Tigers.
counting. That's 2 for DFW. Thank you, Gunter. Thank you. We got it done. But overall, that's kind of been the theme is the what ifs.
Yeah.
And one of the questions that was kind of thrown around throughout the press box and even on Twitter a little bit. We saw Professor Diggs, another fan of the show, tweeting about it as well. A lot of people thought Duncanville was the better team. So I'm going to ask you guys, do you think Duncanville, the better team, lost today?
That's something I've been kind of fumbling with myself all afternoon. We talked about it earlier. William Wilkerson with Dave Campbell's walked up to me and goes, I think the better team won. And I said, I think, but I don't really know. Yeah. I'm not sure. I mean, I think with the teams that were out there today, probably the better team won. But I still have to think, if Jaquindon's out there, that thing's just a whole different story. I know he wasn't, so you can't really bring that into account. But I don't know. I just looking at it and even just seeing certain parts of the game, I still think I prefer Duncanville. But that's no shot in North Shore. It's a really good program, and it's a program I have a lot of respect for with John Kay and all those guys over there.
Yeah, you don't even have to ask me. You know what I'm going to say. I mean, it's this is that state title that I would love to put an asterisk by because Jaquindon Jackson didn't play. All right,
you could put another one on 2018 and say asterisk. Crazy Hail Mary boy at the end of the game.
It was just one of those games, and I felt as though Duncanville, when it comes down football being the ultimate team sport, that the team aspect of it would be able to carry them through to a championship. But look, you have to credit Galena North Shore, and also look, we didn't say this. We say the narrative about Jaquindon Jackson not playing. Zachary Evans didn't play either, and
Chadrick Banks
didn't play either.
He's been out for a while.
So there's a lot of what ifs when it comes down to it. But look, teams don't get to this point by accident, and Galena North Shore definitely didn't win by accident either.
And I do want to mention that I think in a lot of the minds of Texas high school football fans and experts and everybody kind of in this building today, when we all woke up and saw that Zach Evans wasn't going to be able to play today, was the game's even now. And I don't think that's necessarily the case, just because Jaquindon Jackson is a leader on the field that you just don't see very often. Mm-hmm. And not that Zach Evans isn't when he's on the field, but I mean, for North Shore, you got guys like Demetrius Davis at quarterback. You got guys like Damian George on the offensive line that can help power that team. And Duncanville had to fall on the shoulders of Roderick Daniels. And not to say that Roderick Daniels isn't a bona fide baller, because he is. But he just can't, even from the wide receiver position, let's just start there, he can't take control of a game like a Jaquindon Jackson could or Demetrius Davis could.
Yeah, Damian George.
It's a way bigger hole.
Yeah, Damian George, number 74, left tackle for Galena North Shore, is probably one of the most impressive offensive tackles that I've seen in a long time. And you talk about aggressive blocking style. I mean, this kid was taking people to the Gatorade buckets, putting a little bit of butter and Aunt Jemima syrup on them. I mean, this is a pancake maker. I said that. Okay, that's him. That's what he did. Come on, guys. He was making pancakes out here all day.
And something kind of interesting that I kind of noted about Damian, I will say I didn't look too closely at Damian George today. I didn't get quite a good chance to. I'll look at film on Monday. But something that I noticed throughout the season, seeing North Shore and what they were doing, was that I wasn't impressed with him, that he was kind of like standing up stout once the play started instead of driving his feet forward. So actually, I'm kind of curious to get back to the film now that you say that.
Check it out.
Yeah. Well, Go ahead.
Well, and I was going to say there was no Zach Evans, and everyone's kind of turned to John Gentry to be the guy. But actually, the guy from North Shore today was obviously Demetrius on the ground, but Roger Hagan.
Yes.
Who was great.
Played
he
well.
had over 100 yards. I know he was on 27 carries, but he got some carries when there were some big first downs on some third and shorts where he really pushed through and got through and kept the ball in their hands and kept the momentum on their side. So that's another guy that kind of stood out that I really didn't know a whole lot going into this game. Was kind of keyed on him before by Matt Stepp, said watch for this guy. And he stepped up, and they didn't need Zach Evans today. They were just fine without him.
Well, and you brought up a good point saying that the hole that Jaquinta Jackson leaves is a little bit bigger than the hole that Zachary Evans leaves. That's just how football works. When your star player is your quarterback, it's tougher to replace than your star player that's a tailback. And you saw that because Galena Park North Shore did have a 100-yard rusher out of the backfield, had another one at the quarterback position.
Yep.
So they were able to run the ball as
they were fine.
Effectively as possible,
Yep.
and as effectively as they have in the past. Now, you would have liked to see, of course, with the rematch being as highly touted and as highly anticipated as it was, you would have liked to see Zachary Evans and Jaquinta Jackson on the field.
Oh, yeah.
And that's just one of the sad parts about the way that this weekend kind of unfolded. But overall, what a year it has been here for Texas high school football. Whataburger Friday Night Stars, season number 2 coming to a close. And, boys, want to get your final thoughts just of 2019 and what it brought to the table, what you'll remember about 2019 as well, because it was a crazy year really from the get-go.
I'll let Guy Frazier start that one.
Yeah, I'll start. For me, it's always hard to see it end, but I look forward to the next year. Each time. And, I think there's some guys I'm really looking forward to going forward. And we kind of mentioned some of those that there are stars leaving us, but there are some that are coming up. And the quarterback position, Braden Locke, Quinn Ewers, are two that stand out.
Garrett Rangel.
Yeah,
3 sophomores.
There's a lot of guys coming back at that spot that is going to be really fun. They're going to light up the scoreboard here in the next couple of years that we get 2 more years of. Get to see them grow. So that's something I'm looking forward to. So we lose some guys, but like always, it just replenishes, and that's the state of Texas in general. But the Dallas-Fort Worth area, which we focus on and we love so much, will be just fine, and it's going to be a lot of fun in 2020.
Go ahead, Nick.
Put me on the spot here.
Go ahead, Nick.
Honestly, though, 5AD1, the competitiveness of 5AD1, I've been hammering this home all year, but it was one of the most fun divisions I've been able to cover in my 6th year now covering Texas high school football. Even the difference between 5AD1 and 6AD2, I honestly think if you put Shadow Creek up against this Austin Westlake team, it's a game.
Yeah.
Just because Shadow Creek not only is a fantastic team that'll be moving up to 6A next year, but 5AD1 was just so incredibly competitive this year. You got a team like Lancaster that can't even make it to the semis. It's crazy. Is a team like Highland Park that can't even make it to the semis. A team like Frisco Lone Star that can't make it to state. Frisco Lone Star is probably one of the best 5A teams we've seen in a long time, and they got shut down by Ryan last week. And then also, like you said, the big playmakers at quarterback that are going to be coming up, Quinn Ewers, Garrett Rangel, Braden Locke. And then the 5-1-2 finally gets a championship coming back. Had to mention that. I think that's pretty important. Last couple of years, they've kind of fallen short. Had an unfortunate circumstance happen with Matthew Baldwin, like Travis, when they fell by 2 points to Allen a few years back. And then this year, Austin Westlake finally brings one back down 35.
Yeah, I mean, my takeaway, guys, is just, Friday Night Stars, man, what an awesome show this is, and being able to work with so many talented people. I mean, this guy right here, Guy Frazier, no pun intended, but this guy, and you, man, all of the people that make this show what it is, and all of you guys are nerds, man. You guys got all the numbers. And I'm so impressed by all of the research and the analyst part of it. It's a lot of hours that go into making this show what it is. To the Eric Chiafalos, to my guy, Zach Walchuk, and just the people that make this show what it is. And covering high school football, if you're not from Texas, this may seem a little weird, sitting around talking about, a 17 and 18-year-olds, but that's what this is all about. If you come to a state championship, and right before the Galena North Shore game in Duncanville, they played We Ready, and you just, the atmosphere and the crowd, you see what it's all about, man, and you understand that we're different here in Texas, man. We take this very seriously, and I talk about these 18 and 16-year-old kids as though they are playing in the NFL, and I pray and hope that these kids make it. But if they don't, I tell you what, I take all the pleasure in the world of talking about these kids and their athletic ability and achievements. And if they don't go anywhere from here, it doesn't matter to me, man, because I've enjoyed watching them perform, every Friday and Saturday, and get an opportunity to have this platform to show you my lovely face.
And despite kind of an anticlimactic UIL State weekend, it was still a pretty fantastic slate of games, and you still had fun out here, and you still see the crazy crowds. And so if this is what the floor is for Texas high school football,
wow.
Well, and I want to ask real quick. I know we got to go here soon, but if you had your choice, would you keep it like it is now, or would you permanently switch it to where the rest of the week is the same? But when it comes to Saturday, 6A D1 is the finale always, and D2 is the one that leads up to it, kind of like a chips and queso.
Agreed.
I think I would.
You would have
I would
it as
keep
the
it as a
finale?
permanent 6A D1 finale.
Because I think that's part of why this weekend was a little anticlimactic, just because like the big rematch, it's a national stage rematch. It's not just a state stage rematch.
Well,
and it was at 3 p.m., not 7. It's just weird.
Well, and that's the thing is, I was just talking to a couple guys down the sideline, and one of them made a good point that, yes, sometimes the D2 game can be the better game, but as far as crowds, usually the D1 game carries that.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah,
and this is a good branding game for high school football in Texas, and you want that to be the final one in primetime slot. So even if the game's not as good from a crowd, it's a spectacle, and that's what this whole weekend's about.
Really quick, 6A D1 champion next year. Go.
Ooh,
down the line.
Jeez. I don't like picking against a streak, so I'll just go with North Shore. I know they got a lot of guys returning. Demetrius is back. Shadrick is back.
Yeah.
They'll be fine. They'll reload. That program always does. So North Shore.
Yeah, I'm North Shore.
South Lake Carroll.
I think I might fall a little South Lake Carroll as well. I
I'm
like what
fine with
Riley
that.
Dodge has going on at South Lake Carroll. So that's probably would be, or at least the way too early predictions for Whataburger Friday Night Stars. But kind of going back to what Heckma said, there's a long list of people who let this year happen. Season number 2, we're just getting started for Whataburger Friday Night Stars. Going to try and name as many as possible, starting with some of our reporters, Mallory Hartley, William Broderick, Lincoln Reville, Josh Price. My goodness, Josh was all over the place. Gavin Dunaway, what a season he had as well. We had plenty of guys and girls throughout the season contributing to Whataburger Friday Night Stars. For Zach Wolchuk and Eric Chiafalo as well, we wish them the best with their career endeavors. Hopefully we'll get them back for 2020 here for Friday Night Stars, but they are off with the 105.3 The Fan, doing absolutely incredible stuff. And we love Zach Wolchuk and Eric as well, and we'll talk with them definitely throughout the next season and beyond.
Best bromance in the state.
Right? Isn't it the
state.
greatest? Other than Heckma Harrison and myself, we're catching up is what's happening. Right, Heckma?
Yes.
Okay, there we go. I just wanted to make sure that was. I needed the self-assurance at that point. For guys like Guy Frazier, who goes to 50 games a year for us, an unbelievable workhorse you are. Congratulations on 50 games again.
Appreciate it.
And then we've got Nick Harris as well.
Six short of last year. That's okay though. We're here.
50 games, dude.
I know.
50 to 56. That's
to me, it's a numbers thing.
Exactly. And
it's fun regardless.
It is 100% a ton of fun. For Heckma Harrison, the growth that you've had this year, an unbelievable year for Friday Night Stars. Look forward to working with you again next year and beyond as well. Nick Harris, we've got Nick Harris with Friday Night Stars this year. What an addition he has been, whether it's been every other week or hopping on here with us at UIL State. Glad to have you around and 100% love what you're doing as well with 247 Sports. And
Appreciate it.
Forward.
Appreciate it.
A ton of fun there. But also behind the scenes, Matt Kent, man, what a guy he's been. He's directed our shows all the way through the course of the season. Christopher Beam as well, a huge part. We wouldn't be able to do Whataburger Friday Night Stars without Chris Beam and what he's been able to kind of grow in terms of our production value and whatnot throughout the week, and a guy who just loves Friday Night Stars and Friday Night Football, Friday Night Lights as well. So big thanks to Chris Beam, everybody at the Dallas Cowboys, and at Game On Sports as well, Fred Garner along the way. But just another incredible season, and I'm sad to see 2019 go, but we know 2020 is going to be that much better. So for one final time, for Guy Frazier, for Heckma Harrison, for Nick Harris, I'm Kyle Yeomans saying so long from AT&T Stadium and the 2019 UIL State Championships. It's been a fun season, but now We'll see you in 2020.